All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the hidden architecture of the mind. Specifically, we're looking at those sudden, uncontrollable emotional reactions that, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, kind of run the show. So, picture this. Someone uses a slightly sharp tone of voice with you. Or maybe a friend cancels plans at the literal last minute. Suddenly, you aren't just, mildly inconvenienced. You're terrified. You're desperate. You completely shut down. You're basically ready to burn the whole relationship to the ground over a single text message. Or, hey, maybe you just spill a tiny drop of coffee on your shirt and suddenly you want to quit your job and move to the woods. It really begs the question, why on earth do you still react like a 7-year-old?
In that exact moment, the calm, rational, perfectly functional adult you've spent all day being just poof, vanishes, gone. That adult is completely replaced by a panicked reactor. Your emotional response is suddenly 10 times bigger, louder, and way more desperate than the actual situation could possibly justify.
And then, of course, the dust settles, the panic subsides, and you probably spend the next hour steeped in this heavy, awful silence. We instantly start telling ourselves these false stories, right? We say things like, I'm just way too sensitive, or I have zero discipline, or I really just need to grow up and get a grip. But listen, here is the absolute crucial takeaway. That narrative is entirely wrong, and believing it, well, it's costing you your peace.
Section 1. The Frozen Inner Child.
To really wrap our heads around this emotional hijacking, we have to look at the groundbreaking work of psychologist John Bradshaw. He figured out something fascinating. Growing up isn't this perfectly linear process where past events just smoothly fade into the rearview mirror. Actually, when a child's critical emotional need, think safety, unconditional love, or literally just the permission to feel something, when that goes unmet, they don't just move on. A part of their psyche literally freezes in time right at that exact age.
What this means is you might currently be carrying around a 4-year-old who is absolutely terrified of being abandoned, or maybe an 8-year-old who is completely paralyzed by the fear of being mocked. And the wild part? While you are out there in the world, crushing your goals, paying your bills, and building the successful adult life, these younger versions of you stayed exactly where they were, just waiting in the background with this quiet, wordless persistence for their needs to finally be met.
Section 2. The Somatic Hijacking.
Now, this perfectly explains why these outbursts feel so utterly out of your control. Bradshaw puts it brilliantly. He says, when a present situation rhymes with an original wound, the child doesn't politely ask for a turn. She takes the driver's seat. These massive emotional reactions, they aren't coming from your adult self at all. What you're experiencing is a literal somatic hijacking, where that frozen child violently takes over your nervous system to fight for survival. Think about the massive perception gap that happens during a trigger. Let's say your partner cancels plans. Your adult mind knows, logically, it's just a minor schedule change. They probably just got stuck at work, right? But the 4-year-old inside, they experience visceral, total abandonment. Your adult reasoning completely evaporates, and the child's reality just takes over the entire show. It's the exact same thing with constructive feedback. When your boss gives you notes on a project, the adult hears a totally normal, helpful way to improve. But the previously humiliated 8-year-old inside, they hear a devastating final verdict of being not enough. To us, it seems like an overreaction. But to that 8-year-old, it is quite literally a life-or-death emotional threat.
Section 3. The Cycle of Shame. So, what happens after the panic finally subsides and your logical adult self gets back into the driver's seat? Well, you enter this really toxic loop. First, the trigger hits. Second, you get that somatic hijacking we just talked about. Third, the inner child eventually tires out and retreats. And fourth, this is the kicker, you turn on yourself with intense self-criticism. You just dump this fresh, heavy layer of shame all over yourself, desperately wondering what on earth is wrong with you.
But Bradshaw observed a genuinely heartbreaking truth about this final step. This self-criticism, it's actually a precise repetition of the original wound. Think about it. If you were told your tears were just manipulation when you were a kid, you're telling yourself the exact same thing right now. This shame doesn't create accountability like we think it does. It actively re-abuses the child who is already in so much pain.
And because of all that immense shame, our very first instinct is usually to try and just fix the reaction through sheer intense control. We want to clamp down on it.
but attempting to control it just acts as sophisticated suppression. It literally repeats the original childhood trauma, it makes the inner wound even more volatile, and it practically guarantees that your next outburst will be way, way worse. Suppression is exactly what created the problem in the very first place.
Section 4. The Art of Reparenting.
So, how do we actually break this loop? Bradshaw argues for a profound paradigm shift here. He says the wounded inner child doesn't need to be managed, she needs to be met. We absolutely have to stop disciplining our reactions and start the conscious, intentional act of reparenting ourselves. This reparenting process comes down to 3 highly actionable steps. Next time an oversized reaction hits, step 1, stop trying to override it. Just stop. Step 2, get curious. Ask yourself, okay, how old is this feeling? When was the very first time I felt this exact way? And step 3, validate the pain. Tell that kid inside that she wasn't wrong for needing what she needed, and that her pain is real and it is entirely justified.
See, validation is the total reversal of the original message you got that your feelings were too much or wrong. By actively offering this validation, the adult you are right now consciously gives the child inside the exact comfort and understanding she never originally received when she needed it the most. It is honestly incredibly powerful.
But we do have to confront a pretty hard truth here. No one else is coming to rescue that child. Not your partner, not your therapist, and certainly not the parents who failed you in the first place. It's just you. You are the only one who can go back and become the adult who stays unconditionally.
The ultimate goal here isn't to make the kid go away. It's integration. That's a state where the inner child doesn't disappear, but she's finally seen and she's finally safe, so she no longer has to scream to be heard. Becoming a whole person isn't about achieving this state of perfect, uninterrupted Zen peace. It's about reclaiming your history and achieving this integration so that younger version of you finally feels secure.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question for you to chew on. What is the one-word feeling of your oldest, biggest reaction? Really think about it. That reaction that just feels too old and too big to even explain. If you name its one-word feeling in the comments, I guarantee you'll quickly find a whole community of people doing the exact same thing. You aren't the only one carrying that child. And recognizing that, well, that is the very first step toward true integration.